It's 7:30, so I will call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Fire and Police Commission of the City of Marshfield. Roll call's been taken.
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin is absent and excused. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the 10/18/15 regular meeting. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you for the second. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the acceptance of the Binning Children and Fire and Safety Fund.
Yes.
Chief.
Retired Lieutenant Bernie Binning and his wife Marcy created the Binning Children and Fire Safety Fund within the Marshfield community to aid with the children and fire safety programs within our department. Lieutenant Binning was instrumental in funding some of those programs, especially one that helps children that are at risk for fire. And so that fund will go toward that and things like that. With that, I would ask that you kindly accept their gift as presented and join me in thanking them for this fine gift. They're both here to accept your thanks and also to answer any questions that you may have.
And what did you need?
Just wait and see if they have any questions.
I tell you what, let's have a motion to accept.
Move.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments for Lieutenant Benning?
Just thank you. That's huge.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
Well, no problem.
We appreciate it. Well, and thank you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Somebody actually recognized it.
Yes, right.
Was Bernie prepared to say anything, or?
No.
Okay.
We sort of checked on that.
Yes, we did.
I'm going to change the agenda just a bit in order to get Detective Femmel out of here and back to work. The chief seems to think he's got responsibilities. So we'll go to item 17, approve the promotion of Jason Femmel to the detective position.
It should also be a roll call.
Okay. Motion?
Motion.
Second? Chief, have you got?
Yeah, I just have a couple words I'd like to say. Jason Femmel's been with the Marshfield Police Department for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, he had worked with both Wood County Sheriff's Department and Rothschild Police Department, bringing a total of 9+ years of law enforcement experience to Marshfield when he was hired with us. It was a very competitive process, but Jason came out on top in regards to back earlier, I want to say late 2014, early 2015, when a 4th detective position was approved by this commission. I'd just like to use this time to formally congratulate, recognize now Detective Jason Femmel for his accomplishments, which officially started on November 4th, last Wednesday.
He's not officially detective yet. We have a motion, but we have no vote. Any comments or questions on the motion from the commission? Hearing none, I'll call question. All in favor of the motion to approve Mr. Femmel as a detective, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Guess what? Now you're a detective. Yeah. Congratulations. We're glad to have you in that role. My understanding is you're still doing the school stuff too, right?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Take care of the kids.
yeah, well, in the police department, 2 hats is not unusual, is it?
Nope.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. You're welcome, thank you. Well, that was supposed to be a roll call, wasn't it? You all agree, right? Yeah, what, taking care of that. Review and approve 2016 ambulance contracts presented by Assistant Finance Director Van. Why is it why? Van Why? Well, we're anxious to hear what you have to say.
We will start with the ambulance contracts. We've been doing contracts with our surrounding communities since 1981. Our contract costs are based on the amount of mileage driven in the contract areas as the basis, with a minimum CPI medical services inflation factor as of July 2015, which was 1.7%, or the 5-year contract increase average and the 5-year revenue percentage average of Medicare adjustment, which is 20%. The language in the attached draft contract is the same as it's been over time. The towns and villages are responsible to pay contract amounts and also pay their uncollectible amounts within their boundaries up to $3,000 per contract year. Attached are 3 documents behind my memo on the contract example. The first document compares the total estimated 2015 ambulance costs, the percentage of miles driven in the contracted area to the total miles driven. It shows the actual and recommended amount and a comparison of weighted percentages for the past 5 years. Historically, except for the 1996 contract, the total amount of the contract is determined as a percentage of miles driven within the contracted areas to the total miles driven multiplied by the total ambulance cost. For 2014, that percentage is 60.99%. The contract amounts based on the 5-year average actual percentage is 63.68% and results in an allocated cost of $826,942. The second document shows the towns and villages using the weighted formula to determine their percentage. The components are the population at 75%, square miles at 5%, and number of runs at 20%. The population estimates are from the state, square mileage we get from Public Works Director, and the number of runs are from the 2014 Fire and Rescue Annual Report. In the third document, you'll see in the contracts for the past 4 years, as well as what I'm recommending for 2016. I'm recommending approving the renewal of the contracts of the 13 towns and villages in 2016, and recommend sending it to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee for their consideration.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Let's have a motion to accept the contracts as presented. Thank you. Good. Any comments or questions?
I do have one quick comment for the commission. Every year that this comes up, we send these contracts out. We also arrange for a meeting date with the town chairman of the contracted communities to come and talk, you know, if the questions or anything else, and we have not had anybody come in to talk for the last 4 years straight. So it can be kind of daunting when you look at it, but when you sit down with it, it's easy to explain. So.
Okay. Comments or questions from the commission? If not, this requires a roll call, and I'd better do it roll call, or someone sitting next to me is going to get cranky. Gershman,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Keough, yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Review and approval of the 2016 ambulance rates presented by Assistant Finance Director Van Wy.
All right, so the ambulance rate study. For the ambulance service rate study, we look at the ambulance rates, Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, and the 2015 proposed budget costs to recommend a new rate to be effective January 1st, 2016. The recommended new rates maximize the Medicare reimbursement and provide for a return on investment to accumulate funds for future capital purchases. The rate increase this year is significantly higher than in years past, partially due to the Medicare-Medicaid adjustment difference in recent years. Early indications are that the Medicare reimbursement for 2016 will actually decrease 0.5% as well, further increasing this amount. Enclosed, you will see that the first document shows the projected rate increase and where it will leave us with cost versus revenue. On the far right is where we include the revenue from contracts. We are looking at an estimated 11% ROI. In the second document, you have the cash flow for 2016 project capital purchases that we are anticipating. The following document after that you will see gives a comparison of average and medium costs of surrounding communities such as Wausau, Stevens Point, and Wisconsin Rapids. The recommendation is to increase the base rate for residences by $100 or 20% to $600, and the base rate increase for non-residences by $134, also 20% to $804. The Advanced Life Support 1 rate increase for residents is $100, a 20% increase to $720. For non-residents, the ALS 1 rate increase is $156 or 20% to $936. The Advanced Life Support 2 rate increase for residents is $38 or 5% to $788, and the ALS 2 non-resident rate increase is $47 or 5% to $977. The mileage rate will also increase from $10.40 to $11. The projected rate increases would end up giving us an estimated balance on December 31st, 2018 of $215,000, which maximizes the Medicare reimbursements amounts and establishes the funds needed for future capital purchases. The overall rate increase in comparison to 2015's rate study is a 10% increase. I recommend that this resolution also go before the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
I'll move. Second.
Questions, comments?
Just one question. Was the 11% ROI net, or does that include all the write-offs as well?
That would be all inclusive,
Okay.
yeah.
I have it.
Any other comments or questions?
The
You
motion
can't have any
includes
questions.
recommending the finance committee? Correct.
Excuse me, please?
The motion includes referring this to the finance committee?
Yes. Any other comments or questions? Call a question. Gershman.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Keel. Yes, motion carries. Item 7 on our agenda. Review and approval of 2015 ambulance accounts receivable write-offs presented by Assistant Finance Director Van Wy.
Yes. Okay. The outstanding ambulance accounts receivable are analyzed on an annual basis to ascertain their collectability. Those charges outstanding that are deemed uncollectible are written off, so the ambulance accounts receivable balance reflects a realistic number as required by GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. The city began providing ambulance service in 1964. In addition to serving the residents of the city of Marshfield, the city currently has 13 separate agreements with various surrounding towns and villages. In 2014, the city had 2,876 ambulance runs, with total charges, exclusive of the contractual amounts, being $1,181,000. Attached is a resolution which, if approved, would authorize the write-off of $27,000 of outstanding ambulance accounts receivables as uncollectible. The 2015 budget reflects a $27,000 allowance for these write-offs. These write-offs are for patients that are typically hard to contact, from out of the area, or do not have medical insurance. Where appropriate, these accounts have been turned over to a local collection agency and/or entered into the Wisconsin TRIP program, which is the Tax Return Intercept program. I recommend the Fire and Police Commission forward this resolution to go before the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee as well.
Thank you. Motion?
So moved.
And the motion is to accept this and pass it on to the Finance Committee. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Nope, I got to do it roll call. Gershman?
Yes.
Mil-
Do we need a second?
I'll second. Miller?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Keo, yes, motion carries. Now we get to the regular business, the approval of the fire department bills.
Okay, thank you.
Chief?
You have two sets of bills in front of you, both of which were signed by Commissioner Miller. There's only really one item to bring to your attention. That's on page 8L. That's for $2,999, which is for rope harnesses and other rescue equipment, which are all part of our 2015 budget. As we're going through our supplies and everything else, we're finding that a lot of our rescue equipment is getting up in years. Some of our equipment that we're using that this replaces is going upwards of 30 years. Well, it still does not have an expiration date. It's still time to start to replace that. So that's what that's for. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to ask those. Otherwise, I'd ask that you accept it.
Motion to approve the fire department bills.
I'll move.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions about the fire department bills? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Gershman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Keo, yes. The motion carries. The bills are approved. Fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me, chief. Police department bills always make me edgy anyway. So.
Good morning.
Morning.
What you have in front of you is two sets of bills, one signed on the 6th of October by Commissioner Mueller, one signed on the 20th of October by Commissioner Franklin. Nothing of significance to really bring to your attention. A couple things I'll highlight. A bill came through for the vehicle wraps that we did to make for the appearance of the black and white squads. That's on 9C. We had taken department photos of all of our personnel to include crossing guards, commissioners, etc. That bill is on 9D. Also on 9D, you'll start seeing some purchases towards our K-9 program. We have an officer being trained in K-9 right now. We've purchased, or in the process of purchasing, a new K-9 for the city of Marshfield. As we retired one, and that officer, Officer Scott Schley, has now moved into a drug investigator role. So over the next probably month or two, we'll start seeing some of those, I guess, ancillary items such as kennel. There was a slab of concrete that needed to be poured for the kennel. And then the training bill that'll come through, but you'll see those start trickling through. But the first one's on 9D, and then also on 9I, there was a radar. That was a fairly significant purchase, but that was budgeted for in the 2015 budget. Be happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I look for your approval.
Motion to approve? Second, please.
Second.
Comments or questions for the chief on the police department bills? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Gershman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Keo, yes. Motion carries. Now we can come to the fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence.
Thank you. You'll notice that there's a lot of presentations to schools and organizations as a result of Fire Prevention Week. I'd like to bring your attention to the smoke detector install program that we partnered with the Red Cross for, and that's on page 10C. We were able to install smoke detectors in mobile homes within 2 of the community's mobile home parks. So that was a nice update. Also, there was one fire of note on page 10J, which actually was the result of careless disposal of smoking materials in a garage, and that resulted in $60,000 damage. On page 10M, Deputy Chief DeGran presented an emergency preparedness talk to the Noon Rotary. And then on page 10O is a thank you note from Marilyn Hardiker for the escort provided by myself, Deputy Chief Erickson, and Officer Berg from the police department for the dedication of the park that's named in her honor. So, glad to answer any questions that you may have.
This one, what? We accept and place on file?
Yes.
Motion to accept and place on file. Do we need a motion for that? No, we don't. We're accepting it and placing it on file.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Amy, I've got a question.
Yes.
On several of these for the public education school presentations, the top line on a lot of them says 2 on-duty personnel not assigned to the 1st or 2nd ambulance during presentation. What does that mean?
Well, basically, it's coming off of our daily report, and what that is that's kind of directions of who the people we're going to send are. We will send on-duty people, but we just make sure that they're not on the very first line out ambulances so that we can hold those talks if at all possible. But there also, people are advised that when we do schedule those talks, that if for some reason we're all called away, that we will reschedule the talks at a later date. But we try to maximize it so that they're not disappointed and we don't show up for those. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Has that always been the case?
Yes.
Okay. I thought there was like a group that went around and did it, and I didn't realize it involved that much. Okay.
Oh, okay. Your reference to the, okay, I see where you're coming from. I apologize. In reference to our presentations, right now that committee is being reevaluated. We are going to be changing what we present to the schools following next year, but this year was kind of a transition year, so that's the reason you're seeing what you see this year. So that group is we're kind of getting, the old are wanting to move on to other things, and new group is coming in, so we're just transitioning through that right now.
Any other comments? You know, I note that you've given an award to Shaw's Wrecking Art for 38 years of providing vehicles for extrication training. I know it's 2 years away, but when we hit 40, we ought to do something really special.
I will talk with Craig about that, and we'll see about doing something really nice and
Yeah.
talk with you and see if you guys have any ideas in that. I think that's a great idea.
40 years is a long time to be supportive. 38's a long time to be supportive. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to accept the resignation of firefighter EMT Dan Jonas.
Yeah,
Chief, you want to talk us through that?
Yes, it's with great regret that I have to ask you to accept the resignation of Dan Jonas, who retired after 25 years with service with this department. He's going to be a hard position to fill, but we're going to look for doing that. So I would ask that you accept his resignation as presented.
A motion? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions for the chief on this one? Hearing none, roll call. Gershman? Gershman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Keo, yes. Motion carries. Please share our appreciation and regret in his leaving.
I will definitely do that.
Request approval to hire a replacement firefighter. Roll call for this?
Yeah. Of course, with Dan's resignation, that leaves a hole that we need to fill, and so I'm asking for your approval to go ahead and begin the process to fill that position.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for the chief on the motion? Hearing none, roll call. Gershman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Keo, yes. The motion carries, so you can begin finding somebody.
Thank you.
Shaw recognition, have we sort of covered that?
We have covered that, you've seen that, I'd be glad to take any questions for that, and I will definitely bring that forward. They do go out of their way to help us with that, besides bringing us vehicles and trucking them in and then trucking them out, and they're really not in the best of shape by the time we get done with them, because they're pretty much cut all apart. But they will go out of their way to crunch those cars to simulate certain vehicle damage, like from accident damage, and they'll requiring a whole separate piece of equipment and time on their part. So I think that's above and beyond what just providing us with cars. So I think your suggestion for a 40-year celebration is a really good one.
Yeah, that's, there aren't many things that last 40 years. So, anyway, thank you. Police Department activities, training reports, and correspondence.
Yes, a couple things I'd like to bring to your attention. It was a busy month as well with presentations. Just to highlight some of the presentations that the police department did with the community. We performed dog bite presentations for the Head Start program, bank safety presentation for Ford Financial, canine presentation of our canine program to the Red Hat Society. Also did a drugs presentation to 130 parents from the Marshfield Area Parent Network. These are 130 parents of school-age children. We had a presentation at Astor Retirement Center, more or less just a question and answer opportunity where Detective Nenist was present there for about an hour and a half and just answered various questions that the residents at Astor had for law enforcement. And this is something that we're going to be doing on a regular basis, probably quarterly throughout the year for Astor to put on their activity log or on their community involvement log. A couple other things that kept us busy this month. We had the detective interview process, which we discussed earlier. We're still trying to fill one position for hire, and we had interviews of, I want to say, 8 potential applicants, potential hires on the 14th of October. Currently, we're performing a background investigation on the top candidate, and if everything pans out with that, there may be a conditional offer to hire forthcoming with that individual. We're hoping to, if everything would go well, we're hoping to have that individual start mid to late December of this year. That would be filling a position of retired officer Jeff Shahantik, who retired on September 1st. One last thing I'd like to bring to your attention. We've been sorting pharmaceuticals with our pharmaceutical disposal program since 2006 in coordination with Groundwater Guardians and a couple other pharmacies throughout the community. To date, we've taken in close to 8,200 pounds of pharmaceuticals, both through our drop box, through the one-day events throughout the community. We also go to many of the CBRFs and do pharmaceutical collections just to get that surplus out of the hands of those individuals that don't need those medications anymore. We had, early on in this collection, we used to sort the medications, or the pharmacist used to sort the medications, and came to roughly an 8% of those medications that we took in were controlled substances. Well, controlled substances are sought after by individuals out on the street who want to abuse them, or choose to abuse them, or want to sell them. Taking in that 8% of that 8,200 pounds and taking the average street value of each of those pills individually, that 8,200 pounds equates to a street value of controlled substances of $1.15 billion of potential medications we've taken off the streets that were controlled, narcotics that are no longer in the hands of individuals. So I just wanted to, that's a pretty astonishing amount in my mind. I mean, we were, but when you actually take down, the average cost of a pill, or the value of the pill, I should say, to an individual who needs it or wants it to abuse, that's a significant number. I just wanted to say hats off to Groundwater Guardians for all of their hard work and dedication that they've done to get this program up and running. Hats off to the community and to the City of Marshfield and the Police and Fire Commission for supporting us in continuing this program. But hats off to the community in and of itself for bringing those medications, cleaning out their medicine cabinets, and disposing properly of those medications.
And Chief, what pharmacies specifically have given you a hand with this?
Walgreens Pharmacy usually helps us with sorting. We've also had Marshfield Clinic pharmacists assist us on occasion with sorting. We'll usually hold a one-day event right around the time frame when DEA or the DOJ announces when the pharmaceutical take-back or roundup event will be. It's usually one Saturday in April, one Saturday in October. Those one-day events, we've probably for the last 3 years we've held at Shopco. So a couple different pharmacies have helped us with that. And one last thing I want to bring to your attention is on the 21st to the 23rd of October, the City of Marshfield hosted the Crisis Negotiators Conference. it's pretty much mostly a Wisconsin, but we received attendees from the Midwest. Roughly 200 crisis negotiators attended down at Hotel Marshfield, and from what I told, it was a real good, real great training. This was the second year that Marshfield has hosted the Crisis Negotiators Conference, and it sounds like they may have signed a contract to hold this for the next 2 or 3 years down at Hotel Marshfield as well. So that's a great to have that many law enforcement related individuals in the community, enhancing their skills and learning from some very qualified speakers that don't mind coming to Central Wisconsin.
Honing their skills, and we hope spending a little.
A couple checks you'll see through here, 14K through 14T. We received various restitution checks. We received a payback check from Tomahawk Police Department, which was for us sending officers up to assist with their fall ride, their annual Harley event that they have in the autumn. And then some grant reimbursements that we received from various agencies and groups that we work with. Otherwise, I ask for your approval and to have these placed on file.
It will be placed on file. We don't need a vote, do we? And that always confuses me. Next item on the agenda is crime reports. And they're pretty extensive this time. Rather than going through them page by page, maybe if the commissioners have questions.
We won't go through page by page. I'll just highlight the crime reports that you see in front of you are not a whole lot different than what you've seen in the past. The crime numbers are pretty much on track to where we've been in comparison to 2014. Where the extra paper is coming from is I took our speed signs that we have out in the community, and I actually printed off some of the data or the charts that at one time you had seen on the overhead projector. But and then I also included a map of all of the places in the community that we've placed the speed signs to date. There's a couple that didn't quite fit on the map as far as on this page, but for the most part, from what you see is where all the speed signs are. That's on 15E. And then the rest is just data numbers for I believe the last 4 locations that we've had the speed signs posted. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on those.
Any questions for the chief on the crime reports? At some point, Chief, I suspect somebody is going to say something like, in terms of operations, what difference does all the data make? And you don't have to do that this morning, but you might think about sort of getting your head around that. Yes.
This is a technical question. If with a speed detector, it's set at say the speed limit 25,
Right.
and it won't light up unless you're going 25 or higher, correct? Because it never lights up when I come.
Well, there's a couple things. Either the batteries are
No, all the time.
if you're what we do is to save on battery life. We often don't have it trigger until somebody's going 30. It's still tracking your speed and tracking the fact that a vehicle went through within the posted speed limit or at the posted speed limit. But just to save on the battery life, we figured we didn't need somebody to know they're going 27 miles an hour. But once they're going 30 or more in a 25 is when we were having that start to display their speed. One thing we also recognize, and I have no issue with sharing this with the community, is I was at a conference recently and a vendor was there that sold us these signs, and he reminded me, or informed me, I guess, that the signs do take photographs, and we can set the sign up to take photographs if somebody is going 20 or more over the speed limit, 25 or more over the speed limit. And we wouldn't use those, we can't use those photographs for enforcement, but we can use those photographs for education for us and for the officers if there's a green minivan continually, or a red Mercedes maybe, continually going past a certain location at a ridiculous speed to where we'd want to go there at that time of day and maybe look for that red Mercedes or green minivan or whatever it may be. So it's a good tool for us to use and to assist the community in driving safe.
There's supposed to be some humor in there somewhere. All right.
If you believe that board never lit up when I came upon it, I got a bridge I'll sell you, so.
I think I have a photograph of that.
Probably, yeah.
I think the last thing left on our agenda is the policy review and approval, but in the packet, there's no policy to review and approve. But before the meeting, you told me you had a story to tell the commission. I'm anxious to hear it.
Well, I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it a story, but Lieutenant Zeps will help me explain this ask, I guess, that we're going to make of the commission. Unfortunately, we've been fairly disappointed with the company that we've been using for our policy revisions. Their customer service has been lacking. There's been very little as it relates to technical support in this policy revision. This was a policy process or a policy company that we started working with prior to my appointment to chief, and we've just carried out this. The ongoing support after we would be all said and done with drafting all of our policies and having our policy manual in place is non-existent. Once our policy manual is done, there's no additional follow-through down the road. That would be all placed on us. So we've been shopping around for other options, and we found another option in a nationwide company that curtails to each state and works with each state and their laws. This is a company called Lexipol. They do provide ongoing support. They have a team of attorneys behind them. They work with the various insurance companies, League of Municipalities, CIVMIC, other insurance companies. And I guess what I'm looking for, and I'll let Lieutenant Zeps fill in the cracks where I may have left out some things, but what we're looking for is maybe support in going with this other company. We'd probably be starting from scratch again. We were assured through a webinar that and a teleconference that we could probably have our whole policy manual done in probably 6 to 12 months. So by the end of 2016, we'll be complete with it. If requested, they provide on-site assistance as well. There's individuals that they have assigned to each state that reside in the state that I believe Wisconsin Rapids, to show you some of their support, Wisconsin Rapids, Wausau PD, both use Lexipol. I saw the chiefs nodding their head. They're familiar with Lexipol and the quality of the company it is. I guess, Pat, do you have anything?
A little bit of background on how we kind of came to this was what this company we're currently using was sending me the policies for review. Now what they advertise is that we could move towards accreditation if we chose to do that. So what will happen is they'll send me a model policy that I then look and I try to compare with what we currently have and what I think we need. So I'll craft like various questions and things and changes that I would recommend, and which time I'll send to the chief and we'll go back to the company. And it almost seems like they blanket stamp everything change that we make. So a number of the policies have come in where I've had questions as far as, well, why are we doing this? What is your recommendation as far as accreditation and what we should do? And the blanket response is, do what you want with policy. So in short, I think we're gonna go through a lot of work, we're gonna go through all these policies, and in a short amount of time, a couple of years, we could be sitting exactly where we are with an outdated manual that doesn't really apply to us. So we're not getting the support from them. I recently had a conversation with the owner, stopped in, and asked me how it was going. What I did tell him is I'm looking for direction when we send them back as far as the changes we can make, the changes we can't make. And again, he reiterated that there's agencies that they're working with that completely carve the policy up, and there's agencies that just blanket stamp it. I think we need more than that. We need direction from them as far as what should we have in there, what should we not have in there. We're not getting that. So when you look at the Lexipol company, they are a team of attorneys that are basically experts in risk management. They're nationwide, like Rick said. And we're going to have a really soundly backed, legally defensible policy manual that they'll continually provide updates and training on a weekly basis. They'll provide updates. quizzes that we can take, so I think we're gonna end up with a far better product than I think what we're getting now.
I think they currently work with 5,500 law enforcement agencies throughout the nation, and that whole risk mediation factor, I think, is huge in a high-risk profession such as, law enforcement. So I guess I'm just looking for, we'd be happy to answer any questions, otherwise I'm just looking for support and potentially pursuing this other company.
Questions from the commissioners?
Just curious, what was the main problems with our current policies that we've need them updated or need to make massive changes to them?
The ones before we even started, like when we started like a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
there was many policies that we are bound by state law to have that we didn't have. There was a lot of our policies were outdated. Some had been updated as recently as 1997, 1999. Some had not been updated since 1985. And we were discussing the value of going for accreditation as a law enforcement agency, and one of the biggest, I guess, obstacles with that is having an outdated or antiquated policy manual and not being current with what the profession is seeing nationwide. So those were, I guess, a couple of the factors that we were looking at and saying, okay, well, we need to update this because we've reorganized it a couple times, but we've never really given it a complete overhaul update and removed information that is antiquated, put in information that we never knew we even needed in the first place. But this is going back, I guess, generations of administration.
If I could just piggyback on that too, from the standpoint of being a road officer or a road supervisor, when you want to reference the policy manual in its current state, it's very difficult. And I think that's a result of having something that's been piecemealed and fixed and patched and reorganized over the course of, like Rick said, 30 years. It's very difficult to use. It's very difficult to find specifically what you're looking for. And I think that's another big part of what Lexipol can provide is a logically, a policy manual that starts from point A to point B. It's logical in its progression. It's easy to read, and you can find the information that you need, and we really don't have that. And I think that's just a product of a very long time of policies being introduced and repatched and worked in where they can be. And it's a very daunting task to get that fixed.
And our existing policy manual was written by, from what I'm understanding, a group of Marshfield police officers who had gone to a 2-day class on policy writing. So I mean, I think you get what you pay for in many respects. And when you're talking about, you look at the media on a daily basis and the high liability and the risk factors in keeping a community safe, and what officers are, how they're potentially getting in trouble, or how law enforcement agencies are getting in trouble, or maybe getting a black eye with the community. A lot of that maybe you can be ahead of it a little bit, ahead of that curve, if you have a policy manual that's up to date and a department who is proficiently knowledgeable in that policies and the expectations of their job.
I also believe that that's, should something happen in the city of Marshfield, with an officer, that's going to be the first thing they're going to come in and take a look at, is what did that policy say? Did the officer operate within it? And when you have a policy manual that, as Rick said, is out to date, not really logically structured and difficult to navigate, I think from the offset there's going to be questions and problems. I think this takes care of a lot of that.
So in essence, you're really just gonna start over.
Yeah, in a sense, I think the basic framework of how they work is that they will actually come in and take a look at our policy manual. They'll do far more with it than what the current company is. They'll look at the policy manual, they'll actually provide a set of, I think it was in the area of 150 policies that are already pre-written and state specified. At that time, that we can go through them with them and decide what do we need to change for our agency, what do we not, if that's my understanding. So, in a sense, some of the work will be taken off of us that we're doing now. We're trying to go through the policies and almost put our spin on something that we're looking for direction. Do we need this, do we not need this, is this legally defensible? And that's what we're not getting, and I think Lexipol will take care of that. So, yeah, in a sense, we're starting over, but in a sense, they're going to do a lot more than the current company is, so the workload will be taken off of us.
If you had to equate the number of man hours you have into the maybe 20 policies that we've had approved by this group, what would you say?
I would easily venture that it's an hour and a half to 2 hours per policy. Sometimes some policies are very easy that are state statute backed that they have to make very little changes to, but some policies take me a number of weeks to go and try to find the person who can speak to it, whether it's somebody in the department, whether it's a DAT instructor, or somebody who is more up on biohazard. Sometimes those policies I'll have 3 or 4 hours into. It adds up. It takes a lot of my time. Mike?
So what is a distinction, or is there any distinction between policies and procedures? Or is it all inclusive?
That's a great point, because one of the things I was going to say earlier is that what a company should do when they look at a policy manual is be able to go through it. And I think in our policy manual, you have a number of procedural things that don't belong as a policy. The nice thing with that is when you change a procedure, you're not going in and changing a policy. So I think there are some things that can be separated out of there. Currently, I believe that there are some procedure and policy mixed in, where we end up with a policy manual that's this thick, and maybe our policy manual needs to be this thick. So that's a great question. I think that they'll do that.
I think it's great that you recognize that you have a problem now. And you only have one chance really to get it done right, so I can support that.
2 questions. What have we paid the company that's not supported you very well, and what are we proposing to pay the new company?
The current company, we've paid, I think, roughly $1,500. And they said that our total cost would not go over, I believe, $2,100 if, by the end of the policy manual. This new company, with their ongoing support and the team of attorneys that they have, and their reputation, we pay $8,000, and then it's an ongoing annual fee of, I believe, roughly $7,000 a year to get updates, to be provided online access to training materials that we can push out. We currently use a software company called Deer Creek Technologies, and we'll put policies into that. We'll push them out to the officers, to the civilian staff, and we'll create questions related to those policies, and it will quiz them so we know that they're reading them. We can push out videos, have them watch it, maybe ask them test questions on those videos. With Lexipol, they have a training software that's part of the program that you get. They create the quizzes for you based on your policies. You can still push videos out, and you can still create quizzes and such. It tracks all of this for us, so it's kind of a one-stop shop rather than having to, because right now I believe we're paying close to $1,000 a year to have this other online, this Deer Creek Technologies access, which we wouldn't need anymore once we would go with this nationwide company as Lexipol. But it would be an ongoing, an annual fee of $7,000, which is more than we've obviously paid before. But again, when you're looking at mitigating risk and the potential to have probably the top policy company in the industry supporting us, I mean, I think it's a small amount compared to what a lawsuit could bring if there was something that could have been prevented and not.
Any comments about the dollars? Second thing, 5,500 was the number I think you used of entities that they work with.
5,500, right?
Yeah. You and I will talk about how to do it, but I'm going to want some evidence that they understand that in Wisconsin, this commission has ultimate executive authority over the police department. They don't have, I suspect, very many situations like that. And I want to make sure that they understand as they get into it that they're going to have to adapt what they do in response to that very different circumstance.
I did bring that up when we were doing the conference call and the webinar. I brought that up to the individual. The individual I was talking to was, I believe, out of Seattle, Washington at the time. although he's just a salesman, he says the individuals that we work with that are knowledgeable in our state and that are local, that are reside in our state, will have that expertise as it relates to optional powers and non-optional powers, and we'll make sure that we're getting the product that we desire. He assured me of that, so.
That's good. We need to be, from a commissioner's point of view, we need to be sure of that. Any other questions or comments? Any additional business to bring before the commission? Hearing none, I'm going to say that this meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Police and Fire, or whatever it is, we're adjourned.